Good evening, everybody. This video is for 2-9 applications of percents. So yesterday, or in 2-8 I should say, you dealt a lot with just how to find percents, dealing with the whole number or part of the number and all that good stuff. Today we're going to talk about how do we actually apply these in the real world. Okay, and this is times, you always like to ask, when am I ever going to use math in the real world? These are two big parts of the real world that you will use math in. So you got 3 vocab words today. Commission is money paid to a person or a company for making a sale. You've probably heard about people who work on commission. That's like car salespeople. When they sell a car, they get part of that money for their salary. Sometimes when you go into stores, people like clothing stores, people there might work on commission. Then we also have interest, which is the amount of money charged for borrowing money or the amount of money you earn when you're saving money. This has to do with your bank. Your parents probably know a lot about interest. And then principal is how much money you borrow or invest. So that's the original amount that you start out with before you start earning interest. So the first thing we're going to talk about is commission. And for commission, we have a nice little equation that we're going to use. And that is that total pay equals the base salary plus the commission earned. Okay, so here we have Mr. Cortez, who earns a base salary of $26,000, plus he gets a commission of 5%. His total sales for the year were $300,000. Find his total pay. So we're looking for the total pay. We're just going to call that T. We know that his base salary is $26,000, so let's add that in. Now to calculate his commission, we know that he gets 5% of $300,000, 5% of his sales. So we're going to take 5% and we're going to change it to a decimal, of course, and we're going to multiply that by his sales. That's going to tell us what 5% of 300,000 is, which would equal his commission. So then I have 26,000 plus, and I got 0.05 times 300,000, and that is 15,000. So then Mr. Cortez's total pay for that year would be $41,000. Okay? Total pay is base salary plus commission. Let's look at one more of these. So we have a telemarketer that earns $350 per week plus 12% commission on sales. Find her total pay for a week in which her sales were $940. So again, we're looking for her total pay. We'll call that T. Her base salary is $350. And then she gets 12% of her sales. So again, I'm going to change the percent to a decimal. I'm going to multiply that by my total sales, which was $940. And that will give me her commission, 12% of $940. So then I do 0.12 times 940. That's 112.8. So I still have 350 plus 112.8. So I'm going to add those two together, and I get $462.80 that she would make for that particular week. Okay, so that's how we calculate our commission, or our total pay, I should say. The next thing that comes up is interest, and we're just going to be talking about simple interest. There's other types of interest, but we're just going to start with simple interest. And here's the equation that we use. I equals PRT. I, you can see here, stands for simple interest. P stands for principal. R stands for your interest rate, and make note here that this has to be written as a decimal, not as a percent. So if your rate is like 8%, that would be 0.08 in the equation. And then T stands for time, and make note here this is in years. Okay? So if you have 6 months, you have to change that to 0.5 because it's half of a year. So time in years. Let's take a look at some of these problems. Here we have find the simple interest paid for 3 years on a $2,500 loan at 11.5% per year. So first of all, we have to take note of what we're finding. We're finding the simple interest here. Find the simple interest. So we're looking for I. So that means that we have to know the values of P, R, and T. Remember, P is the principal. That's how much I was loaned or how much I invest. So that in this situation is $2,500. R is my interest rate. Here that is 11.5%. I have to write it as a decimal, so when I put it in the equation, it's 0.115. And then time, 3 years. So then I have 2,500 times 0.115 times 3. And that will tell me that the interest I would earn is $862.50. Okay. Now let's look at another one here. Again, the first thing I need to do is figure out what I'm finding. Here it says find the interest rate. So that means I'm looking for R. I don't know what R is. So that means I must know what I, P, and T are. So I would be my interest. So the simple interest earned on an investment of $5,000 was 45. So that means here's my interest right here. So I have 45 equals. Now how much did I invest? I invested $5,000. So that's P. Now I don't know what R is. So I'm just going to put that in the middle. And how long was my investment? 6 months. Now remember, time has to be in years, so 6 months is half of a year, so I'm going to put 0.5. Okay, so now I have to solve for R. Now I can multiply 5,000 and 0.5 together. You'll remember, it's okay to move multiplication around. So that gives me 2,500 R. Then all I got to do is divide by 2,500. So 45 divided by 2,500 is 0.018. Now, rate comes as a percent, so just like in 2-8, I have to change this into a percentage. So my interest rate on that investment was 1.8%. Okay? Now let's look at one more example here of interest problems. The simple interest paid on a loan after 6 months was $306. The annual interest rate was 8%. Find the principal. Okay? So again, what am I trying to find? Well, I'm trying to find the principal. That means I don't know what P is. So I must know what I is. The simple interest was 306. So that's going to go where I goes. I don't know P. The rate was 8%. You got to put that as a decimal, so that's going to be 0.08. And the time was 6 months, so once again I have to put 0.5 because time has to be in years. So then if I do 0.08 times 0.5, I get 0.04 times P. So then to solve for P, I'm going to divide by 0.04. So 306 divided by 0.04 is 7650. So I invested $76.50 originally. Okay? So those are interest problems. We'll be using I equals PRT for all of those. Now the next thing we have in this section, the next and the last thing, is estimating sales tax and tips. Now I know that all of you probably have a tip calculator on your cell phone, and that's awesome. But I just want to quickly cover here, how can you estimate a tip or estimate sales tax without having to dig out your cell phone and put in the tip calculator. So I have 3 rules here that if you know these rules, it makes it really easy to estimate things. So find 10% of a number by moving the decimal point 1 place to the left. Okay, so anytime I want to know what 10% of a number is, I just move the decimal point 1 spot to the left. If I want to know 1% of a number, I move it 2 places to the left. Okay? And then if I want 5%, I just find 10% and then divide it by 2. Alright? And most tips, 10%, 15%, and then if I know 1%, I can pretty much find anything that way. So those are the 3 rules that we're going to use while we estimate tips and sales tax. And I'll show you the method that I want you to use. So estimate a 15% tip on a check for $21.98. Now notice here we are estimating. So I'm going to take $21.98 and I'm going to make it $22. Just because it'll make things easier, and it doesn't matter because I'm estimating. So the first thing I would do is figure out what's 10% of that. Well, our rule said move it 1 to the left. So 10% of 22 is 220. Well, 5% of that is just going to be half of 220. Well, half of 220 is 110. Now if I add those, that means that 15% would be $3.30. So that's how much tip I would want to leave, approximately, if I wanted to leave a 15% tip on that check. Okay, and that was really easy. I could have done that in my head, but this would be the work that you would show. Alright, estimate the sales tax on shoes that cost $68.50 when the sales tax rate is 8.25%. Here, I'm going to round $68.50 up to $70. Okay, it's pretty close, and again, I'm just estimating. And I'm going to make 8.25% just 8%. Alright? So what I can do here is let's find out what 1% of 70 is. Well, according to our rule, I move it 2 spots. So 1% is 70 cents. Okay? Now I want 8%. So I'm going to take 8 times 1%, which would be the same as doing 8 times 70 cents. And when I do that, I come out with $5.60. So the approximate sales tax on shoes that cost $68.50 would be about $5.60. Okay? And we're estimating. It's most common on these. People just like to go ahead and multiply the percent by the total and give me the exact. That's not what I'm wanting you to do. Okay? Because you're going to need a calculator to do that. When I'm estimating, I don't want to have to use a calculator. I don't want to have to get out my phone. Okay, I just want to be able to do it in my head. It's much quicker that way, believe it or not. So on these estimation problems, this is the method that I'm looking for you to use. Okay? And that's all we have for 2-9. We'll see you guys tomorrow.